Hey everyone, and welcome to a brand new series and video here on the channel. So we're going to be going through the native species of reptiles throughout the world, country by country. For those that know, I am a huge lover of all reptiles. I've kept some throughout the years. I've had some as pets. And honestly, whenever I go to like zoos or anything like that, I immediately try to see if they've got a reptile house, and I could honestly spend all day in there just looking at them all. I find them fascinating and honestly incredibly beautiful creatures. Yes, even snakes. I am going to warn though you, if you're one of these people that has a phobia of snakes, there are going to be a lot of snakes throughout this series. So if you don't like snakes, but you don't mind looking at pictures of them, fair enough. But if you don't like snakes, down in the comments there will be chapters of when I have stopped talking about the snakes. Luckily here in the UK, we only have 6 species of reptiles. And 3 of those are snakes, and 3 of those are just normal variety lizards. So yeah, let's without further ado, let's start off. So the first one we are going to be talking about is the adder. Now, there's a lot of controversy around adders. They are venomous. They're the UK's only venomous snake, but their venom isn't enough to kill you. The only people that would probably die from an adder bite is those of have underlying health issues, the elderly and the very young, so babies, toddlers, that kind of thing, because their immune systems aren't strong enough to combat the venom. All it will do is make you very ill. I know a couple of people who have had adder bites throughout the years, and they said it basically just feels like you've kind of got a really bad case of the flu, you vomit and everything like that. That's about it. But you can get treated for them anyway. I think there is anti-venom out there for adders. So we're going to take a look at a couple of pictures of the adders, and then we'll get into a little bit of information about them. So you got the male and the female variety, but you've also got another variety which is called the melanistic, which they're a very different colour no matter what sex they are. They could be male or female, you just won't know because of the colour. So that's going to be the first one we take a look at now. And you'll see here you've got 2 here. One's a female, I think one's a male, and the other one is the melanistic. So this black one you see here is the melanistic. Honestly, I find the black ones as beautiful as the other colour variety. I've seen the black one, and we used to be when I worked in groundkeeping. I was moving a tarp that was covering a flower bed, and there was a black adder. And if you're British, that's where the term for the British TV show with Rowan Atkinson comes from, black adder. But yeah, so that's the melanistic. And then next up we have the male. So there is the male. So the male has kind of like a white kind of beigey colour on it as well, and you'd know it's an adder because it will have this kind of pattern going down its back that is black. So that's how you'll be able to tell if it's a adder. And then the next one is a female. So the female is kind of like a browny colour, as well as that black pattern along the back. So, about adders. So these are part of the viper family, funny enough. Until looking at and doing more research into them for this video, didn't know that they were part of the viper family. And they're usually known as the common European adder. These are found all throughout Europe, so they will probably make an appearance later on in the series when I go through the European countries. But Yeah, so they're found mostly throughout Central and Europe and Eastern Europe, and as far as East Asia. So they can be found in certain locations in East Asia. And there's 3 subspecies, which we just went over. So a lot of their common names is the common adder or the common viper, and they have been kind of a subject of a lot of folklore, especially here in England and in European countries. And they're not, like I said before, they're not especially dangerous. They do have a venom, but it's not enough to kill you unless you're, like I said before, really young, elderly, or have underlying health issues. They're not usually aggressive either. They're very like all snakes. They're not out to kill you. They mainly only really bite you or attack if they are provoked or they feel threatened. So that's what happens with the adders. So they only usually bite when they're provoked. They get stepped on or picked up. I have picked up an adder and I've picked up a grass snake, which you'll see in the next segment as well. I've picked up both. They're very easy to pick up. They're very docile creatures. They won't attack you. But as a reptile fan and as someone who has handled snakes before for people owning them, I know how to handle a snake. A lot of people say you go for the back of the neck, but that's the most delicate part of their body, and that can really injure the snake. You try to at least go for the tail, but you go above their coacula, which is like their butthole basically, because that can really cause some serious damage. You go for like the last third of the snake, and you try to keep it arm's length and step back from it a little bit as well. So you try to at least keep it as far away from your body and your face as possible. But me saying this, don't go out there picking snakes up. Okay, just don't. That's one thing I am going to say. Please do not go out there and actively pick up snakes that you find. Just try to walk around it or move in another direction to it. But don't go too fast, or because that's when it could strike. And yeah, so they have different types of terrain and habitat, but because they mainly feed on small mammals, birds, lizards, and amphibians, and in some cases they're very young. So like the baby snakes will feed on like spiders, worms, and insects. And the females breed every 2 or 3 years, and they usually give birth usually the late summer to the early autumn. And these snakes, unlike a lot of snakes and a lot of lizards, they don't lay eggs. They give birth to live young. So they usually store the eggs inside their bodies, and then they kind of absorb the egg and give birth to the live young. So they're quite thick-bodied, and adults can usually grow up to about 24 inches. That's from head to tip of the tail. And yeah, some have been known to grow up to about 35 inches, and they've been found in other countries that aren't the UK. And so the habitats that they can usually be found in is a lot of like heathland and like fields. I've got quite a lot of fields near where I live, so it's quite common that you might come across an adder now and again, but they try to keep out of the way of humans. So the next snake we're going to look at is the barred grass snake. Now these snakes are not venomous, they're not poisonous, they're completely harmless. They can bite, but again, very, very harmless to humans. And the bites do hurt, from what I've heard. I've never been bitten by one, luckily, but apparently they do still quite hurt a bit, but it won't kill you. So here is the grass snake. I'll just put up a picture now. If I can find the picture. I had all the pictures up, but I don't seem to have. Okay, that's not a problem. We can solve that issue. So here's the barred grass snake. This is probably the only colour, and that's usually where you can find the grass snakes throughout the world as well. But again, they aren't venomous. They're not poisonous. They won't kill you. Like I said, they may bite if you if it thinks you're going to harm it. But 9 times out of 10, these will do a trick that some snakes do, and a lot of lizards do it as well, where they fake their death. So what happens is, if they feel threatened, they will kind of, it's called feigning death. So they will kind of flip their body over onto their back. So if you got their underbody and their belly is sticking upwards, and they'll kind of like open their mouth and stick their tongue, get their tongue fall out. They'll quite often do that because predators won't go and eat a dead snake. They'll try to, especially like birds of prey and everything, they will actively grab a live snake. And they like to live very like the adder, heathland, fields, but they also like to stick close to water because their main food source is amphibians, so frogs and toads, and they have been known to swim as well. They can't actually swim in really deep waters, but if there's a small pond or anything like that, then they will swim. I've got a really big field, and amongst those fields and woodland, there is quite a few little water sources. So grass snakes can be found all along there by me. And over here in the UK, we have things called commons, which are big open wood and fieldlands that you can actively walk around. And there's big pools of water in and around there, and they have been known to stick around by them. These also go a lot of snakes. These do go into hibernation, so they'll find like a rat hole or a badger hole or anything like that, usually a big hole in the ground, and they will go down into there for hibernation over the winter, and they'll come back out usually around April time when it starts to warm up again, and they'll be 9 times out of 10. That's when you're most likely to find them, because they'll be out basking, soaking up the sunlight, so they can go out and hunt. These, unlike the adder, do produce eggs, and they usually lay around about 40 eggs a time. And like a lot of lizards and snakes, not every egg is going to have a snake in it. Sometimes an egg can go bad. It happens all the time. It happens in captivity, and it happens in the wild, where clutches of eggs aren't always 100% guaranteed to have babies in them. They molt like all snakes. They shed their skin, and it usually starts off with the head, and then they work their way out of that old skin. And quite often, if you ever come across snakes and they've kind of got like a cloudiness over their eyes, it's because they shed the skin over their eyes as well. And that's, to be honest, that's when snakes are most dangerous, because they can't see very well, so they're very defensive and very kind of on guard at all times during those stages. And they can also, when threatened, they produce kind of like a garlicky smell. That's to deter predators away from them. Their main like source of predators are mainly birds, but you've got like the corvids, storks, owls, raptors, because we have not the velociraptors, but we have the species of birds called raptors. Pheasants and foxes are also known to actually go out and eat snakes. And also the domestic cat. If you own a cat over here in the UK, quite often they'll bring in a mouse or a small rabbit or anything like that, but they can quite often bring in snakes. And they're actually protected over here in the UK by the Wildlife and Countryside Act. And they can't be harmed or traded without a license. So if you've got a snake issue and you get like quite a lot of grass snakes in your garden, you can't kill them. It's best to try to find any way that they're getting into your garden and board that up and remove the snakes safely. They can't be traded without a license, but you can legally capture them and keep them. They've been known to live at least 10 years longer in captivity than they do in the wild. And yeah, they are in 2007 they were included in the Adaptive UK Biodiversity Action Plan as a species in need of conservation and greater protection, because people have been killing them, or their numbers in the wild have been going down because of predators, and deforestation and urban development kind of removes some of their habitats, so they have been protected. And next up we have the last snake that we can get over here in the UK. These are known as smooth snakes. Now these are usually found over here in the UK. They're found in the very south of England, so mainly I don't think we get them over in the area that I live in, but they've been known to have found mainly, it's a huge section of coastland where they're usually found over here in the UK, and there's a few others in the like further inland, mainly in massive field and open woodland. Which I don't have that here. It's fairly big near where I live, but it's not big enough to harbour these snakes. And I'll just put up a picture for you now. So this is the head of a smooth snake. As you can see, very different coloration to the adders and the grass snakes, which makes them a lot easier to spot. If you actually want to go and look for snakes, you'll be able to distinctly tell them just by looking at the patterns and the coloration of them. These are also another non-venomous snake, and they're not known to bite humans, mainly because of where they live. There's not many humans out there. And they mainly feed on many other reptiles. So like the lizards that we have here in the UK, they mainly feed on them. So they're mainly in those areas where those lizards are. And they have been known to eat small mammals as well, like mice, rats, stuff like that. And they actually are type of a constrictor, so they wrap their bodies around their prey, and unlike a true constrictor, they don't kill using that method. Like a boa will kill their prey then eat it. These mainly do that so they can just capture their prey and then they'll eat it whole. And these are, unlike the adder and just like the grass snake, they produce eggs when they are about to give birth. They produce eggs, and the younglings hatch from the eggs. But there's not much known about these smooth snakes because they're not well diverse, and there's not a greater number of them like the adder and the grass snake. So now we're going to move on to the lizards that we have here in the UK. I've never actually seen these. They're very hard to find, these lizards. I've never actively seen any, but I would love to be able to go out and find these. So the first lizard that we have, you're going to think, oh no, this is a snake, but it's not. This is actually a type of lizard. This is known as a slow worm. Now these are a breed of legless lizards, and yes, you can get legless lizards, although snakes did start off as lizards and evolution took place and they lost their legs. These obviously these are kind of like that, but they aren't classed as snakes. These are still classed as lizards, and they are gorgeous. I've seen some of these. I think this is the only type of lizard that I have seen, because you can get them in the area that I live in. But again, they're beautiful, beautiful lizards. And they're also known as the death adder, slow worm, like I said, a blind worm, and a long cripple or hazel worm. They've got multiple different names throughout different locations that they're found, and these are found all throughout Europe as well. And these are the reason why they are a lizard and not a snake is because the reason why they lost the evolution took place and they lost their legs is because they're a type of burrowing lizard. So not having those legs enables them to burrow through undergrowth and soil a lot easier than it does with legs. And they spend a lot of their time underneath objects like rocks, stones, like logs, anything like that, because that's where they feel safe and that's where predators are. You'll find it a lot harder to get them. And the reason why reason why they're called lizards is their scales are smooth and they don't overlap with each other, whereas snake skin, if you look at it, a lot of their scales will overlap. And they also have the ability to, if they feel threatened by predators, they can shed their tail, so their tail will fall off, and that's basically so the predator will go for the tail that's fallen off, and the lizard can get away. Or if a predator has grabbed it by the tail, it can shed its tail and it can still get away. And it's actually, they're really common in gardens or allotments. So allotments over here in the UK are like massive gardens that you can put in for, and you can grow your own type of vegetable, but other people are doing the same in the same plot of land, but you have your own certain segment. And it is encouraged to make kind of little shelters for these, because they help remove pests, like pest insects, from your gardens or allotments. And it's also best to, if you want to do that, large piles of logs or corrugated iron sheets or tiles is the best way to create kind of like a small little hide for them. And on warm days they can often be found underneath, because these are all called heat collectors. So they'll, especially the corrugated iron sheets, they'll collect all the heat, so the heat will be stored underneath them, and they'll go under there, and that's how they'll like warm themselves up. Reproduction, they are so I think they are live young, I believe. Yeah, I think they're live young. I can't see anything about eggs, so yeah. And they're not very big either. They're I think, just looking at my information I have on them, they can grow, most of the adults grow up to about 45 centimeters long, so not that big at all. Like I said, they're more of a lizard than a snake. Snakes are usually a lot bigger. And then next up we have the Viviparous Lizard. These are incredibly beautiful. I have a male and a female picture just here. So this is the female. So the female looks a lot bigger in body size, but a very shorter tail, whereas the male has a shorter body but a very longer tail, as you can see. These I've never seen these, but apparently they're common in my area that I live in. And they're very terrestrial, so they spend a lot of the time on the ground, and they occasionally visit sites of high elevation, so like trees and stuff like that, so they can climb trees. So that, again, these hibernate. I think a lot of our lizards, like a lot of the snakes and the lizards, hibernate over here because it can get really cold over here in the UK. And they're mainly found in heathland, moorland, woodland and grassland. So a lot of the area that I live in is full of like those type of habitats for them. And these can probably grow up to about 70 millimeters. So they're very small, which is probably why I've never seen them. I would love to go out and herp, which is the scientific name for going out and looking for reptiles. It's called herping. Maybe I will go out and do that sometime, and maybe I'll record it for you guys as well. Again, I don't think much is known. So they're a non-marine reptile, so they don't go into the water or anything, and they usually like to eat insects, so flies, spiders and a lot of other insects, cicadas, moth larvae and mealworms, and their predators are birds. So because they're quite small, birds are their main predator size. So birds of prey, crows, snakes eat these, shrieks, which I've never actually heard of, hedgehogs, shrews, foxes and domestic cats. And they usually live for about 5 to 6 years, so a very young, a very small lifespan, whereas the snakes and the slowworm can live for 10 years and up. And the very last one we have is known as the sand lizard. These are usually commonly found in, like the name suggests, sand, so a lot of sandy areas, so beaches, stuff like that. I think some have been known to be in sand pits and golf courses because of the sand, especially if a lot of those golf courses are kind of near where they are, like their habitat and everything is anyway. So here we have a sand lizard. So the very beautiful coloration on them compared to the Viviparous lizard, where they're kind of like a really dark colour. These look a lot prettier. And these are not much is known about these because of the general location where they're usually found. But these are found mostly across Europe and France, and some have been known to be found in Russia as well. Yeah, so it's only able to survive along coastal heathlands in England because they use the sand to incubate their eggs, which is kind of why they're located in and around those areas only. Yeah, so I don't think much is known about what they eat or anything either, because there's nothing in my information. No, but because of their size, probably a lot of what they eat is probably insects, like all lizards. They'll probably mainly eat insects and invertebrates, and their main predators are going to be birds of prey, so mustelids, foxes, badgers, birds of prey, snakes, pheasants, chickens and cats. So like the other lizards and the snakes on our list, basically any wildlife in the UK, that is carnivorous will eat them. But yeah, they're not much is known about them because they're so hard to find in some areas that not a lot of scientific study can be put into these. But that concludes our first part. We'll probably go into mainland Europe next in the next episode. But let me know in the comments what mainland European country you want me to start with, because I'm probably going to go through all of them, but I want you guys to choose where I start. And yeah, if you like this video, leave a like button, comment what your favourite out of the 6 species we've got over here. I certainly know mine, and it is the grass snake, but I want to know what your guys' favourite is. And also, if you want me to keep doing this and you want this to be a full series of all the countries around the world, drop it in the comments. I'd love to know your guys' opinion. But don't forget to like, leave a comment, and if you haven't already, subscribed and ring that bell so you know when I'm posting a new video in this series. Peace out, everyone. Have a good day.